Donald Trump just destroyed his malicious prosecution felony case relating to the reflecting pool. Before it even began, he trotted out Jeanine Pirro, who's brought the case, the United States attorney for Washington, D.C. And when she did this press conference, she proceeded to say things that just blew up the case before it even started. Now, there was no case, in my opinion, before it even started. They charged David Hearn with a destruction of property felony count. When you actually look at the indictment that was brought, you can't really even decipher what they're saying that he did. On June 19th, David Hearn went to the reflecting pool. He was a two-time Olympic canoeist. He showed up because of it being on the news as falling apart. It had all the algae in it. The bottom liner was all falling apart because they threw all this hydrogen peroxide into the water. And so he looked at it. He said he dipped his hand into it. Like, we all knew that it was all ripped up before, and it was all not because of humans, but because when you pour hydrogen peroxide on a paint lining and think that that's going to solve the algae, that destroys the paint. So we all saw it. I think I was describing it before the David Hearn thing. I was saying it looks like a mutant, like stingray in there, these like globs would form. And that's from the hydrogen peroxide. And that's from, the horrible work that was done to it in the first place. But Donald Trump went out there, it's vandals this, it's vandals that. So he made his DOJ concoct a case and go after, a high profile person or go after people, say they're the vandals. Meanwhile, Trump went out there and said, yeah, they were slashing the middle with box cutters and they were ripping it apart. And it was this Antifa thing and all of this thing. And then they charge this guy, David Hearn, put his hand in. There's no photographs of the guy. I've seen photographs. The only photographs I've seen is the guy afterwards. I think there was someone who calls herself a reflecting pool influencer, and she's like an ultra MAGA person who did like a video of it, and she was like right there, and like I think David Hearn immediately spoke to the to like the park police, like, hey, do you see what's going on there? You can see his hand. He put on his gloves right away. It wasn't like he took a chunk as a souvenir. You literally can see his hands. And so anyway, it's they bring in an indictment against the guy based on this for a felony. Jeanine Pirro does this press conference, and then you can see how I didn't think that there could be a worse case than the James Comey seashell case. But this may be worse than the seashell case. If I never thought there could be the 86-47 seashell case, this one right here. And, this is like the biggest idiocracy thing. As Aaron Rupert says, this press conference is beyond parody. It's true. Like, I don't have the words to capture it. It's like a deleted scene from Idiocracy. First, let me show you, though, when Jeanine Pirro says he caused damage that was over $1,000. And a reporter was like, how do you prove that? Like, how are you going to prove that to a jury where he didn't take it? There's no photos of him doing it. In fact, the only photo show him putting on gloves afterwards. It was clearly destroyed before he got there.
He can't help himself but emotionally react to things. One of the things that he's a narcissistic sociopath. That's the thing everyone has to kind of get used to. It's the reason why you cannot normalize him. You cannot treat him like a normal human being because he's not.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video. We put a lot of time into research, fact-checking, and making sure every story we bring you is informative and meaningful. As an independent channel, your support truly keeps this work going. So if you find value in our reporting, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and help us reach more people with stories that matter. Your support means a lot, and it allows us to keep giving our best every single day. 2 weeks ago, George Conway lost. Badly. 5th place, out of 8 candidates, 6% of the vote. In a Manhattan congressional primary he'd launched specifically on the 5th anniversary of January 6th, no less, to go take the fight to Donald Trump directly, from inside the United States Congress. The voters of New York's 12th district looked at the most prominent conservative-turned-Trump critic in the country and picked 4 other people ahead of him. Now, if you only know George Conway as the guy married to Kellyanne who hates Trump, that result probably reads as a punchline. But if you've tracked this man's actual file the way I have, the legal arguments, the stone-cold loser tweet war, the marriage that reportedly didn't survive the Trump presidency, that primary loss is actually the most interesting plot twist in the whole story, and I want to walk you through why, because it tells you something real about where this fight against Trump is actually being won and lost right now. So today, the full Conway file. who he actually is, why Trump genuinely cannot stand him, the marriage that became a national political Rorschach test, and what his primary loss 2 weeks ago tells us about this moment. Let's get into it. Start with the credentials because this is not a random pundit. George Conway is a Harvard College graduate, a Yale Law School graduate, and he argued and won a case before the Supreme Court of the United States, Morrison v. Australia Bank, 2010. This is a serious top-tier appellate litigator, the kind of lawyer who gets considered for genuinely powerful jobs. And here's the detail that makes the whole story so much richer. Donald Trump himself considered George Conway for 2 positions in his own Justice Department Solicitor General of the United States, the government's top Supreme Court advocate, and Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Division. Conway withdrew himself from consideration. Think about that for a second. This isn't a lifelong liberal who always hated Trump.
Listen to what she says. Play this clip.
Was this part of the pool specifically? Was the sealant already partially removed? Did he rip it back? Can you just describe in detail? Because he maintains that it looks the same as it did before he arrived. That's his.
You know, I'm not going to get into the evidence, but what I told you is what our witnesses saw and experienced. There was an effort, a violent effort to rip up the sealant from the bottom of the pool. And irrespective of whether or not, we think that, there is some situation that preceded it, we can state and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he caused damage, and that damage is over $1,000.
Keying in on that, how do you prove that $1,000?
With an expert.
Is that
come to the trial.
It has to be drained? Is that because it has to be drained?
We'll hear all that at the trial.
Did he have any tools, or was it just his bare hands?
Right now, we believe it's his bare hands, both hands.
So does that indicate in your belief that it was probably damaged before, or do you believe that he
he damaged it.
Further, but do you believe it had already been damaged before?
He damaged the pool.
Before he touched it?
He damaged this pool.
But there have been, all these videos, obviously.
Well, good. I'm glad you've got that evidence. Come on in the grand jury. You can testify. Next.
Thank you for your time.
I mean, what does she think this is? And by the way, she said she's going to prove it with experts. Kind of just 101 rules of evidence. You can't have an expert testify to something that's within the province of a lay witness. So it's actually not something an expert witness, would likely even be able to testify to. And, all of these witnesses who saw it, she goes, irrespective of what took place before he got, what do you mean irrespective of what took place before he got there? That's going to be you realize this case will now be focused on all of Donald Trump's lies. By the way, in my view, Trump should probably be a witness. If I was David Hearn, Donald Trump's and I know Donald Trump's going to not testify, but he's probably, a witness based on, he probably made this order to Jeanine Pirro to do this and to go after, this. We have our witnesses. Who are these witnesses? I wonder. Here, Jeanine Pirro, though, as she goes, she's like, let me show you over here. Let's show that second clip.
Many of those employees have come from around the country because they are proud of this nation. They are proud of the 250th anniversary that we are about to experience. Many of them have decided to step away from their desks and to go outside and actually work next to the pool to witness what was going on, as opposed to staying in a cool office. These are the witnesses that we're talking about in this case. These are the people who care about this particular monument and what is going on.
I want to bring in Harry Littman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel. So she goes, I'm not going to talk about the case. Then she proceeds to talk about the case. You see how weak it is when she actually gets it. I mean, it's just the stupidest case imaginable. But then apparently her witnesses appear to be Trump plants. Like, if you listen to what she said about these witnesses, they seem to be people from MAGA who the Trump regime put there to gin this up. I mean, that's kind of what, and these people in a real case, they're going to be cross-examined. They're going to be asked questions. The Brady material is going to have to be turned over. And this case is going to fall apart. And then, the cycle, Harry, the liberal judge, the Trump hating judge dismissed this case and blah, 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 blah. We were going to get the vandals, but the judge threw it out. Like that. It heads on that track. We've been down this route. It's this track. You think about you and I 4 years ago, those frivolous RICO cases that he would file against people in Florida where the judges would say, this is the stupidest thing ever and sanction him and Alina Habba $1 million. This is the DOJ version of that, Harry, in my opinion.
It's this DOJ version of it. I always, I can hardly contain, this is just me from my experience, but I was U.S. attorney, and my God, how it's drummed into you that the U.S. proves its case in court, and when it comes time to talk about an indictment, you can talk about the allegations in the indictment, making clear the presumption of innocence. This imposter of a U.S. attorney came out and said, I'm not going to talk about the evidence. And then every friggin' thing she said was outside of the bare bones indictment itself. You can't prejudice the jury that way by this is really the equivalent as we learned in the grand jury saying, oh, don't worry, we have all of this stuff. We have all these witnesses.
That's why he can't follow. He's not going to be able to follow his lawyer's directions. That's why, he played right into the plaintiff's hands in the E. Jean Carroll case. They're trying to show basically he's a jerk. And what does he do? He acts like a jerk right in front of the jury. He shows disrespect for the jury. And, the fact of the matter is he's saying, oh, none of this ever happened. Well, okay, where's your testimony?
This is a conservative legal heavyweight who Trump's own White House wanted inside the building, in one of the most powerful legal jobs in the country, and who chose to walk away and become one of Trump's fiercest critics instead. And his wife, at the exact same time, was doing the opposite. Kellyanne Conway ran Trump's 2016 campaign, then became one of his most visible and combative defenders as senior counselor in the White House. The person who literally coined the phrase alternative facts, defending Sean Spicer's inauguration crowd-sized claims, a phrase so notorious it reportedly sent sales of George Orwell's 1984 surging on Amazon within days. She was one of the few White House staffers with her own Secret Service protection due to threats against her, and she chose Blueberry as her code name. She'd co-authored a book years earlier called What Women Really Want, with a Democratic pollster no less, so this wasn't someone without her own independent professional credibility either. She stayed a Trump loyalist even after leaving the administration. Even after the divorce, she remained, by every public account, an ally of the president, while her ex-husband kept building the opposite case in public. So picture the dinner table, one spouse running Trump's political operation and defending him nightly on cable news. The other spouse becoming the most prominent conservative legal voice arguing the president is, in his own words, unfit and dangerous. Both from the same house, at the same time, married more than 2 decades. That's not a normal celebrity feud. That's a marriage that became a live, ongoing referendum on Donald Trump, playing out in the op-ed pages and on Twitter for years, while the two people at the center of it still had to raise 4 kids together. So let's get into why George Conway actually turned. Because it wasn't instant, and it wasn't ideological, it was, by his own account, personal and specific. He told The Independent in 2024 about a moment in 2017 that he says planted the real seed. At a wedding, he says Trump launched into what Conway described as a crazy, nonsensical rant about then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who had just recused himself from the investigation into Russia and the 2016 campaign. Conway says he was already troubled by Trump's attacks on the FBI, and that wedding rant is what tipped him from uneasy Republican into full opposition. And once he turned into a specific kind of critic, not a rage tweeter, a legal one. His public writings starting around 2018 focused on making formal legal arguments that Trump's actions were unconstitutional or unlawful. He co-wrote a New York Times op-ed with Neil Katyal in 2018 arguing Trump's appointment of an acting attorney general was unconstitutional. That's the Conway method. Not Trump is bad, but here is the specific legal defect in what he just did, and here is the citation.
It is so prosecutorial ethics 101 that it's not permitted. And when I see it happening again and again in this godforsaken administration, it's like chewing on aluminum foil. Okay, so that's I'll try to recover my composure and go to your second point. The case is going nowhere. The guy, by the way, I don't know, he's a 66-year-old, very kind of impressive, composed former Olympian. He says he reached in to touch to see what it feels like. And they're going to have what? They're going to have, as you say, witnesses who came there to celebrate the 250th anniversary. I think there are about 11 of those. Who are going to say, what? He ripped it out with his bare hands and did, okay, so where is the evidence? What happened to this stuff? Why would he lie so clearly? You know, you go there and you've heard all about it. You're not looking to damage it. You're looking to figure out what the hell and how has this debacle kind of happened. And then that's the third point. The Washington, the DC statute that they've charged him under requires that it be malicious, looking to damage, all the things that Trump is saying. I don't see a world in which they have this evidence. And, you know, this will probably be one of those cases that never even proceeds to a verdict. But if so, it's like Sandwich Guy. You know, once again, they're going to be humiliated. They must know they're going to be humiliated. And it's just the initial effort of, is it to please Trump or before July 4th or what, to come out and make these scurrilous charges. But this is the agency that's entrusted with complying with constitutional rights, the presumption of innocence and the like. And to see Jeanine Pirro just basically saying, you know, trust me, I got some real great witnesses there and we know nothing about them. As you mentioned, the discovery here, the Brady material, you're the Midas Mighty all know this. I think the Fed heads as well, but you got to turn over anything you have that tends to be exculpatory. If it comes to it, the cross-examination of these witnesses, man, oh man, this is a case that is really, you know, heading straight to a crash against a wall. And, you know, they've got, there are some people who've been charged who this would be ruinous for. This seems to be one of the guys who's like, bring it on. He's got really solid lawyers from the public interest community. So I don't even think, we talked about Jack Smith in another video and how he seemed completely calm about the whole prospect. I think that's what you're going to find out about this guy. They really did pick on the wrong guy. But the main thing is they picked the wrong case because they don't have any fucking evidence. And for her to go out and just talk about it like that is just a complete dereliction.
Let me predict what happens, though. Everybody's still talking about the Don Lemon criminal case. No, why? Because the Trump regime then designates it complex. They say they can't pull out the documents. They do delays and they delay, and then there's motions, and then there's this or there that. And so this is the Trump cycle. This is what he did with his regular litigation. You know, they bring out Jeanine Pirro, you know, the corrupt Fox host turned prosecutor, whatever. She does that on. They get their headline. I bet you, let me predict every move. They're so easy to predict. They're bringing bullshit cases against a bunch of other people too. So now they're going to say it's a complex case where they want to combine it or consolidate it or put it on a track like that. So then they're going to say, well, you know, it's not its normal fast track. And then they're going to say we need more time for discovery. Then we're going to get motions from David Hearn and his lawyer saying, no, we want to speed it. They're not turning over this or that or the other things. There's different fights. The judge orders against them. They say the judge is against us and it's unfair.
Trump was moving the boxes basically, going through the boxes basically himself as though he were like, you know, turning the door in the garage at the Watergate. People wanted to send Richard Nixon to jail for what was kind of a cryptic comment in the Smoking Gun tape about, well, we could get the CIA to tell the FBI to back off. And that was like, oh, he knew about the cover-up. And right. That was the thing, that was the Smoking Gun that led.
That's a much harder thing to wave away than an insult because it's checkable, arguable, and comes from someone with an actual Supreme Court win on his resume. But he didn't stay purely clinical. By 2018, he was also going after Trump on a personal level, as his Wikipedia file understatedly puts it. Twitter posts questioning Trump's mental fitness for office, a habit that became one of the defining features of his public persona, and eventually, the exact thing that triggered Trump's most vicious responses. And it's worth situating Conway inside the broader Never Trump conservative movement, because he wasn't a lone eccentric, he was part of a real, if relatively small, current within the Republican legal and political establishment that concluded, around 2017 and 2018, that Trump represented something categorically different from ordinary partisan politics. Figures like Bill Kristol, Steve Schmidt, and Rick Wilson traveled a similar arc, lifelong conservatives, some of them architects of Republican campaigns for decades, who broke publicly and permanently with their own party's standard bearer. What made Conway distinct within that cohort was his specific combination of top-tier legal credentials and a spouse literally inside the White House defending the man he was attacking. Nobody else in that never-Trump world had quite that particular, almost theatrical personal stake in the fight. And in December 2019, he took it further. He became a founding member of the Lincoln Project, a super PAC explicitly built by former Republicans with one stated goal: defeat Trump and Trumpism at the ballot box. Their first video, released in January 2020, was called The MAGA Church, warning evangelicals to be wary of false prophets. The Lincoln Project became, for a stretch of the 2020 campaign, one of the most talked about anti-Trump media operations in the country. Sharp, viral, unapologetically aimed at peeling off disaffected conservatives. Now, in fairness to the full record, I should note the Lincoln Project's own later troubles. Conway himself said in 2021 that the organization should shut down after it emerged that its leadership had ignored warning signs about misconduct by one of its co-founders. That's a real black mark on the project he helped.
Hearn files all of these malicious prosecution motions. You and I will be talking about this in October or November, and then there'll be a big hearing around then. Probably gets dismissed, or some meaningful event first happens, maybe around Christmas. Who knows? Maybe it gets pushed to 2027. And that's kind of the cycle of one of these things. That's my, what do you say, Harry?
Yeah. So look, I think it doesn't go to conviction. I think more likely than not, it doesn't go to trial. And somehow their hope, it's all a PR effort, right? It's all to somehow support the boss in this unproven search. And they've so screwed up the reflecting pond, it must be vandals. But some part of them is absolutely indifferent. They just think, well, this first kind of PR hit that suggests that as they just put it in their press statement, Donald Trump was telling the truth again. They think that when the time comes and it's dismissed, people will have forgotten about it. And, if that's right or if that's wrong, the cynicism and the indifference to justice and the actual person, defendant, who they want to put in the pokey, is breathtaking. And that's whether their calculation is right or wrong. To me, there's a pretty big hit when the sandwich guy walks, when they dismiss the Comey case, as they will again, when this one totally crashes and burns, when judges completely rip into them for grand jury misconduct and the like. But, it's a administration. This plays to their base. And I guess their base doesn't really blame them, even though it's about as bad as it can be for a Department of Justice, right? Charging someone without evidence in order to serve the political agenda of the president. How much more tyrannical can you get?
Yeah, everybody's talking. Donald Trump is panicking this morning as the size of the crowds in Tehran continue to grow. What started with millions is now tens of millions of mourners for Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral procession. We're seeing tens of millions of people on the street in Tehran and in surrounding cities. We'll show you some images right here. So now in the Oval Office, Donald Trump is back to saying, well, we're either going to make a deal with Iran or we're going to finish the job. It won't be tough for us to finish the job. We're going to destroy their energy. We're going to destroy their bridges. We're going to destroy their big, beautiful plants, and they're not going to like it. We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way, Donald Trump says, as he threatens the individuals who are out there mourning essentially the person who is their pope. And as Donald Trump entered into, or was their pope, Donald Trump entered into the MOU. You did the deal already. What deal are you talking? There's nothing more to negotiate other than to make the deal into a long-form agreement. Here's what Donald Trump said. Play this clip.
Maybe making a deal. I don't know. We'll make either. Look, we're going to win one way or the other. We're either going to make a deal or we're going to finish the job. Okay? And it won't be tough to finish the job. I'd rather make a deal because I don't want to affect 91 million people. We can knock down their bridges in 1 hour. We can knock out their energy supply, all of those big plants that they built, big, beautiful, modern plants had a lot of money. They don't have any money now. We haven't given them any money. But we can knock out their electricity and power generating plants in, I would say, a small part of an afternoon. Every plant will be gone. And they know that.
Now, Financial Times has confirmed the numbers that we've been telling you. I've seen some of your comments saying, Ben, there's not tens of millions. You're exaggerating. You're being hyperbolic. Come on, Ben. Here's how Financial Times puts it. The funeral of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, could see a total of 12 million to 15 million visitors across the days of events, making it one of the largest funerals in modern history. I would say it's the largest funeral ever. Take a look right here, what you can see in Engelab Square and Azadi Square. I mean, the whole Tehran is filled with people, and in addition to in the mosque mourning area as well. Here, play this clip.
To his resignation.
Republican leaders to go up to the Hill and say, you have no more support in Congress, and it's why people thought he should have been prosecuted after he left office for obstruction of justice. The people who were on the ground doing the dirty work were like 4 or 5 layers away from him, and he didn't know about it. He got dragged into it late because those people were so incompetent. It sort of seeped its way up. Here, Trump was in the mud.
Build, and a nerd doing this properly doesn't leave it out. Conway stepped away from the organization in August 2020 anyway, citing family reasons the exact same week, notably that Kellyanne announced she was leaving the White House, also citing family. Now to the meltdown, because this is where the file gets genuinely spectacular and where the title of this video earns its keep. March 2019. Trump, responding to Conway's mounting public criticism, tweets that George Conway is a stone-cold loser and husband from hell. Read that phrase again. The President of the United States publicly commenting on another man's marriage in the same breath as calling him a loser. And it didn't stop there. Over the following stretch, Trump also called him deranged loser, whack job, and moonface. A whole rotating cast of insults reserved specifically for this one lawyer. And here's the detail that I think is the single most revealing moment in this entire saga. In April 2023, Trump's Save America PAC put out an actual statement, not a tweet, a formal statement that read, "He's mentally ill, a very sick man." I don't know what Kellyanne did to him, but it must have been really bad. She has totally destroyed this guy. His mind is completely shot. Sit with that construction for a second, because it's genuinely bizarre once you look closely. Trump isn't just insulting George Conway, he's constructing an entire imagined narrative in which Kellyanne, his own former loyal aide, is somehow the aggressor who destroyed her husband's mind, as though George's opposition to Trump could only be explained as an act his wife did to him, rather than a conclusion he reached himself, as a Harvard and Yale-trained lawyer, using his own judgment. It's almost impossible for Trump to conceive of a man forming an independent critical opinion of him without a woman being blamed for causing it. That's not a throwaway detail. That's a whole worldview leaking out in one paragraph. And Kellyanne's own response to all this is worth knowing because it completes the picture. She defended Trump publicly, telling interviewers Trump was a counterpuncher, entitled to fire back when attacked, and elsewhere arguing that George, not a psychiatrist, shouldn't be diagnosing the president from Twitter. So even inside the marriage, the fight had a formal structure. He'd make the legal and mental fitness case in public, and she'd defend Trump's right to counterpunch in public while presumably going home to the same house and the same 4 kids every night.
So then Donald Trump is like, well, we're doing very well with Iran. We're doing very well with them. We're just not getting the coverage that we deserve. It's really a media thing that, when I say they're fully destroyed and that the people hate the regime there and that they have no radars and militaries, when media says they have a military, they still control the Strait of Hormuz, you're lying about everything and then show images. Man, that's so unfair to the United States. Here, play this clip.
Them hundreds of billions, they have more money than they've ever made. And we're doing very well. We paid for the war many times over. And then Iran, we're doing actually equally as well. We're just not getting the kind of coverage that we should. But we have eviscerated them military. And the bottom line is our country is strong. We have the greatest military anywhere in the world. I was with President Xi.
Then Donald Trump said that nobody ever heard of the Strait of Hormuz before this war. Nobody heard of it. He said, but it's a big money machine. You should learn your history. Everybody knew about the Strait of Hormuz. And by the way, I'll give you another piece of history as well. July 3rd of 1988, when the United States military destroyed an Iranian commercial flight, Iran Air Flight 655, killing 290 people. Yeah, the Iranians remember that, and people remember what went down there anyway. Here, let's play this clip of Donald Trump saying nobody's heard of the Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait and the famous Strait of Hormuz, nobody ever heard of, but that is some big money machine, I'll tell you what, when you look at the numbers, Michael.
And then Donald Trump, showing again how just utterly delusional and pathetic he is, starts to brag about TikTok. He goes, you hear about TikTok? People say that I get better ratings on TikTok than Taylor Swift. Okay, so he's like, terrified of the size of the crowds in Tehran. He's lying and saying that more people watch him on TikTok than anything. And this is what you're saying from the Oval Office. And by the way, this is supposed to be like a press conference on what he calls the Trump accounts, investment accounts for babies, where it invests in S&P 500 ETFs, these exchange traded funds. Here, just play this clip of what he says.
About 2 days ago, the new numbers just came out. You know who the number one person in TikTok is by far? Trump, me. I just got, I'm number one. Like Taylor Swift was number 11. I'm number one in TikTok by far.
Then Donald Trump's like, every time I see these crypto guys who are getting rich, I say to them, you're so lucky you got me. You're so lucky because otherwise you'd be under investigation. So you're very lucky you have me. I mean, can the corruption get any more obvious? Let's play it.
They allowed people to come out of jail. And every time I see a crypto guy where they dropped an investigation, I said, you're lucky I'm president, because I don't know if you know, the Biden administration became totally pro-crypto.
Here you have mourners at Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's funeral throwing stones at a billboard of Donald Trump. We can just show you that. Let's play it. And you can see over here, people in Tehran held signs up like this: "We will end you, Donald. Thank you for your attention to this matter." If you look in the crowd, you see lots of signs like this: "Sooner or later, your heads will roll." And it's a photo of Donald Trump and people in his regime. Mourners throwing, you saw that. Lots of messages, threatening Donald Trump that's out there. Meanwhile, the world's on fire. I did a video this morning. We know this weekend, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump spoke for 90 minutes, and then shortly thereafter, Putin launched one of his biggest ballistic missile strikes on Kyiv since the war began. I think right now it's over 20 people killed, striking in the heart of Kyiv. By the way, we've also seen, I'll show you the video right here, showing a Ukrainian drone slamming into the Omsk refinery, which is Russia's largest refinery in Ukraine's longest distance drone strike yet.
They are good people.
You said that for 2028, they're very good people.
Well, we have great people. Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not?
For years, that's not a metaphor for how divided this country got under Trump. That was apparently dinner. And then, in March 2023, after 22 years of marriage, George and Kellyanne Conway announced their divorce. Their statement was carefully warm. Many happy years, their 4 incredible children as the heartbeat of our family. A request for privacy. Amicable, by their account. But nobody in the political press believed the timing was a coincidence, and Conway himself, whether intentionally or not, didn't exactly discourage the read. The day the divorce news broke, when Trump took another jab at him, Conway's public response on Truth Social was ice cold. Looking forward to seeing you in New York at E. Jean's trial next month. Hugs and kisses. That's a reference to E. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit against Trump over her rape allegation. Conway signing off a divorce week jab at the president with a reminder that he'll see him in court over a sexual assault case. That's not a man trying to project amicable neutrality. That's a man who, divorce paperwork barely dry, is still in full legal and political combat mode against his ex-wife's former boss. And it's worth knowing what that Carroll reference actually was, because it wasn't some minor aside, it was one of the most consequential civil cases of Trump's post-presidency. John Carroll, a longtime Elle magazine columnist, had accused Trump of raping her in a department store dressing room in the 1990s. When Trump publicly denied it and disparaged her, she sued him for defamation. Juries ultimately found in Carroll's favor across multiple proceedings, awarding her tens of millions of dollars in damages, and a judge found Trump liable for sexual abuse under a legal standard, even though the case didn't proceed as a criminal rape prosecution.
Various infrastructure within the facility have been recorded. Here's a closer view of the fire over there. And this was probably 2,500 kilometers away from Ukraine. And lots of people are saying that the way these drones had to attack, they actually went 3,500 kilometers to attack from a direction that Russia didn't expect. Let me show you the Omsk refinery. And again, this is one of the biggest refineries in all of Russia. Here, let's play this.
Ебашут еще беспилотник второй.
Смотри, сука.
Стреляет отовсюду.
Смотри.
Вот он, бах, блядь.
Блядь, ты видел?
Туда же. Ебать ее в рот, нахуй.
So then Donald Trump said, as it relates to Russia's war on Ukraine, I think we're getting much closer than people realize. I think we're getting much closer to solving it. We're very close to getting a deal. Promised he would get it done, not just on day one, but 24 hours after the election. The guy lies about everything. Here, play this clip.
I think we're getting much closer than people realize, and President Putin wants it to end. I will tell you that very strongly. A good call. And President Zelensky actually wants it to end now. And we're going to be going to NATO, and we're going to be talking about it. And I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get it ended. It's been terrible.
And then he goes on to brag about calling up Gianni Infantino, the head of FIFA, and having FIFA reverse a red card against one of the top U.S. players. UEFA put out a statement on Fowler and Balogun getting the red card reversed and playing in tonight's game. Here's what Donald Trump had to say. You know, if Belgium beats us, they could be proud, but otherwise, the refs were rigging it against the United States like the 2020 election, Donald Trump says.
A big committee. And after reviewing it, I think they said, look, this game would have a big mark on it. If we lost, if we won, no matter what happened, you have to let them use their best players. And the game tonight's going to be amazing, and we're going to have a full team, and Belgium's going to have a full team. And you know what? If they beat us, then they can be really proud. The other way, if they beat us, we'll say I say it was rigged, just like the election was rigged in 2020, but I won't get into that. Ladies and gentlemen.
And then Ted Cruz was bragging about Donald Trump getting the red card reversed. This hadn't happened, I think, ever in FIFA history, reversing a red card, and a red card that was then confirmed on the review. Here's what Ted Cruz has to say.
And on behalf of all Americans, thank you for getting rid of that ridiculous red card. This is his. That was interesting. It was spectacular. There was a reason the FIFA trophy sat here for as long as it did. Mr. President,
here's the statement from the European Football Federation. Statement on decision related to Fowler and Balogun. Yesterday's decision to suspend a probationary period, a year. The implementation of the one-match automatic suspension following the red card issued to Fowler and Balogun crossed a red line. Football, like any other sport, relies on rules, which are the basis for fair, honest, and transparent competition. Sometimes rules are open to interpretation, in this case not. At a minimum, automatic suspension of one match following a red card is not a discretionary option and does not require the decision of a competent body to be enacted. And it goes on to criticize the decision. Meanwhile, you had Benjamin Netanyahu going on state regime media Fox this morning and saying that only Israel should be able to have F-35s and not Turkey or no one else in the Middle East because, he says, the entire security infrastructure of the Middle East relies on Israel and the United States imposing its military will, and that you shouldn't give F-35s to any other countries. Here's what he says.
I don't think...
Whitsett, North Carolina. Mark on the Trump-Vance line. You're on with George Conway.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disturbed about the double standards you're applying on what you're saying. For example, you dismissed Joe Biden's comments about calling all of Trump's supporters garbage, and that's what he said.
He did not say that, caller. He did not. He did not. He said that the racism, the disgusting comments about Hispanics were objection. I read the quote too, sir. You're just wrong, and I know you want to believe that's what he said. But by the way, he's not running for president. The other guy is.
Mark, did you want to respond?
To call Trump a fascist, calling his supporters fascist. I'm not a fascist. I'm a freedom-loving Republican. And for you to say that Trump supporters are fascists...
Conway had been a visible commentator on that case for years by the time of his divorce announcement, so his "see you at the trial" jab wasn't a random dig. It was him signaling that his opposition ran through the courts specifically on a case with real serious adjudicated stakes, even as his own marriage was ending. And their daughter Claudia adds a whole other layer to this family's public relationship with Trump. She became a TikTok influencer at 15 in 2020, known specifically for anti-Trump content, describing her fanbase in her own words as leftist and anti-Trump. She and Kellyanne were reportedly estranged for a period and later reconciled. So in one household, a father building legal cases against the president, a mother defending him on national television, and a teenage daughter building a social media following out of opposing him. That family was, for a period, a live microcosm of the entire country's split. Now the congressional run, because this is where the file catches up to right now, and it's the twist that makes this story worth telling this week specifically. January 6th, 2026, the 5th anniversary of the Capitol riot, and Conway made sure everyone noticed the date. He launched a campaign for New York's 12th congressional district, the Manhattan seat being vacated by retiring Congressman Jerry Nadler. His launch video opened with footage of the Capitol riot. His pitch, in his own words to ABC News: "We have a demented criminal president running the country like a mob operation, government by the boss, for the boss. We need Democratic fighters who will defend the rule of law." He put it even more pointedly in a campaign ad. "I know how to fight this guy. Writing op-eds and going on TV is not enough." That line is worth sitting with, because it's Conway essentially grading his own 7 years of anti-Trump commentary and concluding it wasn't sufficient that the legal op-eds, the Twitter fights, the Lincoln Project ads, all the stuff we just spent this whole video walking through needed to be upgraded into an actual seat in Congress to really matter. And the voters of Manhattan disagreed with that pitch, badly. On June 23rd, 2026, just about 2 weeks ago as I'm recording this, the primary results came in. Assemblyman Michael Asher won with 39%.
They should be given F-35s or the engines for their fighter jets, because that'll upset the power balance in the Middle East, which is ultimately guaranteed by Israeli air superiority and also by, I think, by America's posture in the Middle East.
And then Netanyahu says that the only reason why Iran is still standing is because of goons. A few 100,000 goons, that's why. And otherwise, if it wasn't for these few 100,000 goons, we would have been able to take it over. Donald Trump and Netanyahu would have conquered all of Iran. And you see all the people out there at the funeral who were just ready and willing and so excited to have Netanyahu rule over Iran because they saw the genocide in Gaza and the genocide in Lebanon. And they said, this is precisely what we want. Come on. This is what he's saying this morning. Play this clip.
We've had over 13,000 strikes on them. You've had over 8,000 strikes on them. Why is that government still standing?
Because it has a few 100,000 goons who murder in broad daylight and at night. They murder their own people.
You've got Donald Trump making posts this morning of National Guard, looking at the reflecting pool. By the way, the reflecting pool still looks green today, and it has all this ash from that disastrous fireworks show. Donald Trump making weird posts about himself sitting courtside at a Knicks game from the 1990s. And then he writes, or he reposts someone who says, thanks to Trumponomics, the U.S. economy is hotter than the New York Knicks. Like, why are you making sports so damn weird too and conflating it with the economy, which is bad and where most Americans are suffering right now? Yeah, maybe not Michael Dell, the billionaire who's in there, whose stock went up. You saw Dell behind him after these Trump accounts were announced and that Dell was going to make a philanthropic investment in the Trump accounts. And then the Dell stock goes up right there. But most Americans are suffering right now, can't afford anything, can't afford homes. Most Americans feel they're going through a Great Depression, but Trump says we're never been hotter. I also want to point this out as well. I'll just show you a little clip of this. We don't need to show the full minute. So last night we had Delcy Rodriguez and Diosdado Cabello giving medals, thanking the U.S. search and rescue teams in La Guerra. Everything has to be medals now. So we have the authoritarian regime of Venezuela that held up aid to the people of Venezuela following the earthquakes and who did not do a good job in deploying search and rescue teams. There's still tens of thousands of people missing and presumed dead, over or close to 3,000 confirmed dead. That's going to increase dramatically. And now we're handing out medals. And the person handing out the medals while America's envoy is standing right there is a guy who there was a $25 million bounty on him. But that's the Trump regime for you. That's the Trump regime. Let's play it.
Condecoración Héroes Caninos de Venezuela a los 6 semovientes caninos pertenecientes al equipo USA 02.
Team USA 02, Canine Heroes of Venezuela Award, received by 6 members of this year. Happy Independence Day.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. ¿Es bravo? Yes. ¿Cómo está?
Sí, tenemos que es mejor.
Okay.
Muchas gracias.
No, thank you. Happy Independence Day.
Líderes del equipo USA 02.
And then the weakness of the Trump regime, obviously, being demonstrated. China sees how weak they are. China's Navy just successfully test-fired a nuclear-capable ballistic missile carrying a training simulation warhead from a strategic submarine into the Pacific high seas. The launch triggered swift condemnations from New Zealand, Japan, Papua New Guinea, who called it a threat to regional stability. We don't hear anything from Donald Trump. Kim Jong-un of North Korea did a cruise missile test over the weekend as well, bragging about their nuclear capabilities. But Donald Trump and Michael Dell in the Oval Office bragging about their helicopters, and Michael Dell goes, "Sir, we don't have a helicopter. We call it a Delicopter."
It's just wrong.
I didn't say Trump supporters are fascist. I think they may be supporting a fascist. Sir, okay, I was a Republican from 1980 to 2018. Okay? I don't want to see a Republican Party led by a fascist. But he is a fascist. He cannot help but be a fascist. His personality disorders make him a fascist. He does not care about anyone else. He does not care about the rule of law. He does not care about justice. He does not care about right and wrong. He's a criminal. He's a convicted criminal, 34 counts. He stands charged with many other counts in which I really don't think he has much of a defense. He's an adjudicated sexual abuser found by a New York City jury, that included, frankly, people north of the city who were probably Republicans, unanimously found him liable for inserting his hand, in a physical assault, inserting his fingers in a woman's vagina, which the judge called rape. He is, by any colloquial standard, a rapist. Okay? He is a bad man. And why all of you out there seem to want to excuse him and pretend that reality is something other than what it is and what you want it to be is the problem. And I don't say that you're garbage because of that. I think you need to look in the mirror someday and start thinking about, is this man the man you want your children or your grandchildren to emulate?
Fellow Assemblyman Alex Bors took 35%. JFK's grandson Jack Schlossberg, running almost entirely on name recognition, pulled 11%. Public health expert Nina Schwalber got 7%. And George Conway, the man with the Supreme Court win, the Yale law degree, the national media profile, the years of anti-Trump credibility, 5th place, 6%. And it's worth understanding just how competitive and expensive this specific race actually was, because Conway wasn't beaten by a sleepy, uncontested field. AdImpact's nonpartisan database rated it the second most expensive House primary on record, with heavy AI-related and outside spending flooding an 8-candidate field that also included Laura Dunn, Chris Deep, and Patrick Timmons alongside the 4 frontrunners. Nadler himself, the retiring 92-year-old incumbent who'd held the seat since 1992, endorsed Lasher back in February, a significant institutional signal in a district that had been represented by one man for over 3 decades. Every major forecaster rated the general election safely Democratic regardless of who won the primary, meaning this contest was entirely about which specific Democrat would represent deep blue Manhattan, not about persuading anyone on Trump. Conway had donated close to $1 million of his own money to the Biden Democratic Party Joint Fundraising Committee in 2024, according to FEC filings. So he wasn't a stranger to the party apparatus or lacking in personal financial commitment to the cause. He simply couldn't translate any of that, the money, the media profile, the legal reputation, into actual votes against 3 career-track Democratic politicians and 1 Kennedy grandson with instant name ID. So let's actually sit with what that result means, because I think the easy read, Conway flopped, misses the more interesting nerd-level analysis. It's not that voters in a deep blue Manhattan district suddenly decided they liked Trump, or that they disagreed with Conway's underlying argument about the president. Every candidate in that race, across the board, was running on some version of Stop Trump's Excesses. That was the baseline assumption of the entire field, not a distinguishing feature. The Washington Examiner's own reporting on the primary noted candidates were leaning into personal stories to stand out precisely because the anti-Trump position was table stakes, not a differentiator. What actually seems to have happened is that being a famous Trump critic on Twitter and cable news turned out to be a totally different skill set than retail electoral politics in a hyper-local Manhattan district. Lasher had spent years as a staffer to Nadler, to Bloomberg, to Hochschild, deep institutional relationships and endorsements, including Nadler's own.
Donald Trump launched an attack against the Midas Touch network on his social media platform yesterday. He showed a video that we did. It's an interview with former Attorney General Eric Holder. And then after showing that video where Donald Trump attacked Holder and attacked our interview, Trump went on a posting spree with over 400 posts within a 1-hour period. I'll just show it to you here and I'll speed it up so you can see the quantity of posts he was making. And he made these posts last night around midnight. 400 posts within an hour, post after post, and some of the most deranged posts you could ever imagine, even by Trump standards. So here was Trump's attack on the Midas Touch Network for our interview with former Attorney General Eric Holder. You see right here, you see the Midas Touch logo from his post, and Trump goes, Obama sycophant, the former Attorney General who did so much to hurt our country and who weaponized against the Republicans and me, known as Fast and Furious, just gave a speech where he emphatically stated above all else, the Democrats will pack the Supreme Court of the United States if they get any chance. The word is he wants 21 radical left activist judges. Not being satisfied, he then goes on to say that the American people don't want gridlock, terminate the filibuster, and have the most successful 4 years in the history of our country. And again, he shows the interview that I did with former Attorney General Holder. I want to show you now what Trump was posting in those 400 post after post after post after launching that attack on us for our interview with former Attorney General Eric Holder. Just a reminder, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel right now. We've got Trump attacking us. We got Fox attacking us. We're leading all independent media right now. We're about to hit 6 million subscribers. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not have actually hit the subscribe button. So please hit the subscribe button right now. So here are the types of posts that Donald Trump is making in those 400 posts. He posts this: wild. Michelle Obama may have used Biden's auto pen in the final days of his disastrous administration to pardon key individuals. So Trump is now spreading a conspiracy that the former First Lady Michelle Obama was actually running the White House. I mean, what in the world is he talking about? Then Trump posts the following: John Brennan was never for the American people, especially with his communist background and traitorous actions, from being labeled an assassination czar for Obama's secret drone strike program to running a weekly Tuesday morning kill list with Obama and openly claiming to be Muslim. John Brennan is not someone you can trust, leading torture programs. He lied about the amount of civilians that were being targeted and killed under Obama. You see what Trump's doing here? He knows that he and Pete Hegseth have been caught committing horrific war crimes. By the way, their whole operation off the coast of Venezuela are war crimes, and now they've been caught with the double tap or double strike war crimes, and they don't know what to do, and they are flailing, and finally, you seem to have at least some degree of bipartisan demand for accountability of the Trump regime war crimes with Hegseth as they try to throw the admiral who was put in that position under the bus. Just look at some more of these posts that Trump was posting. I mean, this is quite literally, I don't know, psychotic. I mean, I'm not trying to use that word lightly. He's posting breathing out CO2 essential for plants and life, framed as planetary poison, even consciousness itself, unconscious bias, you can never fully escape. I mean, it's just the ranting and ravings of a lunatic. Then he reposts this: I'm sick and tired of this fucking pirates, excuse my language. They invade, rob us blind, impose Sharia bullshit, and milk the taxpayers dry with nonstop fraud after fraud. Meanwhile, there's unlimited cash for these inbred savages, but jack shit for our own veterans sleeping on the streets. You're the one defunding the VA, by the way. You're the one ripping away healthcare from people. But this is what Trump's posting. 400 different posts like this. Then Trump posts the following: Donald Trump is not a Democrat. He's not even a Republican. He's a movement. The greatest president to ever live is what he's posting. And then Donald Trump posts an AI video of the president of Venezuela, Maduro, surrendering to Donald Trump. And Trump writes, breaking: Venezuelan president just publicly surrendered to President Trump. Maduro has now turned in state evidence against the Biden administration and is releasing proof that the Biden asked the Venezuelan government to ship Tren de Aragua drug gangs into the U.S. This is obvious AI that Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is posting, saying that the president of Venezuela surrendered. This is legitimately insane. This is beyond 25th Amendment territory. This man belongs in a straight jacket right now. Then he continues to make these posts. I mean, look at this one. He goes, fraud, the 2020 election stolen. Then he goes on to say there are many ways to rig elections that are being exploited with operations in places including Canada, Brazil, Australia, South Korea, and the Congo, he says. Then it posts like this, John Brennan, enemy of the people, with photos of Brennan and former President Obama. Now, what's going on here? Why is Donald Trump panicking and freaking out like this? Well, his regime.
I think it'll stop him from talking about her.
Maybe for a few hours, maybe for a few days. We've seen it before. We've seen him say and do outrageous things. And early on in his presidency, we'd see him say the most insane things. And then all of a sudden he'd tamp it down for a few hours and read from a teleprompter. And they'd say, oh, this is the new Donald Trump. Well, there is no new Donald Trump. The Donald Trump that you see today is the same Donald Trump that people who have been watching him closely for years and who I unfortunately had to watch over the last several years. It's the same Donald Trump. He is, as Judge Kaplan, the presiding judge in this case, said, he's somebody who can't control himself. And he can't control himself because he's a deeply disturbed, a deeply morally bereft human being who has no conscience, has no morality, has no empathy, has no remorse, and is sadistic, as we saw during the trial, and as the jurors saw in the trial, right in front of their very eyes, that he had nothing but contempt for the woman that he raped and libeled and defamed so many times. This is a sick man. He is a bad man. And what's most disturbing about this is that so many people make this about politics, that they
You do not produce that volume of personal, unhinged material about a man whose actual weapon is legal arguments and citations, unless those arguments are landing somewhere real. And the twist, the part that makes this file genuinely worth a deep dive rather than a rehash, the same skill set that made George Conway one of Trump's most durable irritants for 7 straight years, turned out to be almost useless in an actual Manhattan primary 2 weeks ago. He can still get under this president's skin from an op-ed page better than almost anyone alive. He could not, it turns out, get 6% of Manhattan Democrats to put him in Congress to do it from the inside. Both of those things are true at the same time, and I think that tension is the most honest way to understand exactly where this man's fight against Trump stands today. Hey, if you made it all the way here with me, thank you, genuinely. You're the entire reason this channel exists, and I don't take a second of it for granted. We're independent here, no giant network sitting on top of us, nobody deciding what we're allowed to say. It's just us tracking this stuff around the clock, the Truth Social posts, the primary results, the Supreme Court filings, and connecting it all so you don't have to dig through it yourself. So if this deep dive gave you something the headlines didn't, hit that like button right now, 1 second, and it genuinely beats the algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell because there's always a next one. And share this with one person who only knows the Kellyanne's husband version of this story. And get in the comments, tell me if you think Conway's primary loss says more about him or about the limits of celebrity politics in general. Clip my predictions and check me on them later. Let's talk down there. This has been your independent, obsessively researched breakdown of the story they'd rather you scroll past. Stay sharp out there, stay loud, see you in the next one,